Very rarely do these high-level matchups live up to the expectations, but Petr Yan versus Deiveson Figueiredo not only lived up to our expectations and turned out to be an amazing fight, it surpassed my expectations. That was one of the greatest fights I've ever seen at bantamweight. That's one of Deiveson Figueiredo's greatest fights, and maybe like top two. One of Yan's best fights ever. That was one of the best fights I've ever seen. And Petr Yan gets it done. You know, there were some hairy moments. Figueiredo got better as the fight progressed. That fight had it all, man. What a fucking performance from both guys. But Yan gets the 50-45. Just an insanely good fight. And it had me on the edge of my seat, even in the fourth and fifth when Figgy was down 3. Right? And let me just say this about the scorecard. We're going to break down what happened on this fight night, pretty much just the main card because I only watched the main card. But listen, Petr Yan, I think he got 4 rounds. I gave him the first, second, third. I gave Figueiredo the fourth because he dropped Petr Yan, and I was kind of coping after it happened because Yan got the moment back. He landed like a 5-piece combination right after that, right? But, you know, Figgy had moments in that round, then he dropped Yan. I feel like maybe he should have gotten that round. Either way, it was very close, but 50-45 doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. Figueiredo did pretty well in that fourth and fifth round. The fifth round was getting, you know, very stressful because the commentators, they brought up the fact that Yan has a bad history of going to the judges' scorecards, and that just planted in my mind all those moments of Yan getting fucked over on the scorecard. I mean, there's only one moment, but still, against O'Malley, I gave Figgy the fourth. The fifth was very close. But Yan started this fight so well. He got taken down instantly, right? And I thought, I mean, I freaked out. I was really pissed off. I'm like, oh shit, here we go. Figueiredo's about to dominate him. And Yan reverses the position with like 2.5 minutes on the clock, beats up Figueiredo with some ground and pound, ends the round with the only one having a bunch of significant strikes. And then the second round, we were off to the races. Petr Yan, I've said this a million times, and he proved me right once again. He is the most technical striker in MMA. I don't think anyone on the roster has better technique than Petr Yan. His boxing, his kicks, those side kicks to the knee, the head kicks were there, the body kicks as usual, switch kicks to the body, the counter right hands, the knees, the elbows. This guy has everything in his tool bag. And Figueiredo, you know, I talked about Figueiredo as a guy that throws these Pokemon punches, and that's, of course, his famous weapon is he loads up and he chucks the right hand. And, of course, he even dropped Yan. I mean, we know he's powerful, but he's just dropped 2 guys with the best chins in the bantamweight division. Marlon Vera, first person to ever drop him and the second man to ever drop Petr Yan. Not even O'Malley could drop him. He rocked him, but not even O'Malley could drop this guy. Figueiredo's got some ridiculous power. I mean, and also we're talking about toughness and we're talking about chins. I know Yan dropped Figueiredo with like an uppercut in the third round as well, but my goodness, all the damage Figueiredo took after all those wars in the flyweight division is just really impressive. Like at a certain point, I was just asking myself, how is this guy still standing with all the shots he's getting hit with? And again, we talk about Figueiredo's right hand and his Pokemon punches. This guy was out there in the fourth and fifth throwing teeps to the body, nice uppercuts, right? And he was hitting Yan with some body shots that would have folded a lot of guys. Figueiredo looked incredible. He represented the flyweight skill really well. But in general, man, we've never really seen Figueiredo get, you know, outstruck the way he did early against Yan. It was all Yan in the second and third, picking Figgy apart with combos. He hit him with that video game tie sweep that Yan hits everybody with. You know, just a technical maestro performance. And this is the thing. When I talk about fights rarely living up to the expectations, you know, our expectations with a Yan and Figgy fight was to see a good stand-up battle, maybe a couple of grappling moments, but we wanted to see Yan's entire striking tool bag. But if you were to ask me, you know, what do you actually think is going to happen? I'm going to say, well, that seems too good to be true. We'll probably see an okay striking battle, but, it's probably going to be an all right fight. This was fucking amazing. This fight kicked ass. This fight absolutely kicked ass, okay? We saw every technique that there was to see from both of these guys. We saw, lead question mark kicks from Deiveson Figueiredo. So, this is probably the bantamweight fight of the year. I can't even think of anything that comes that close. Yan versus Song was bro, we got to talk about legacy. We got to talk about legacy right now. I talked about legacy, man. Petr Yan just beat Deiveson Figueiredo, a top 3 flyweight all time on a 3-fight bantamweight win streak. Figueiredo is a top 30 fighter ever. Song Yadong is like a really good, solid ranked win. And this is the thing. We talk about title wins. Listen, Figueiredo could have been in there fighting for a belt tonight. All right. And people would have given Merab all the credit in the world for beating a former champion like him. And again, he's 36, but this isn't like your average 36-year-old washed up type of fighter. He's not even Henry Cejudo washed, right? Henry Cejudo's not washed, but he's definitely not in his prime anymore. Figgy's not at Henry Cejudo levels of far from his prime. Like, he's still fucking amazing. Yan with 2 wins in 2024? My goodness, man. He's back. Petr Yan is back. All right? You know what? Listen, I love Figueiredo. I loved seeing the respect that they showed each other after the fight as well. 2 guerreros. But as I said, I'm not going to pretend I'm not a Yan fan first. All right? I think a lot of us are big Petr Yan fans. And to see this guy go from being on a 3-fight loss streak where he got fucked over in the O'Malley fight, he should have never have lost that Aljo 1 fight, to being on a 2-fight win streak against 2 killers, Song Yadong, Figueiredo, 2 extremely dangerous strikers, maybe the 2 hardest hitters in the bantamweight division back-to-back, and this dude outstrikes both of them. He's the best striker in the UFC on a technical level. Maybe not, Figueiredo was in there doing some good work, but on a technical level, I don't think anyone's better than this guy. He might be one of the most technical fighters ever. And I've talked about great boxers. I've talked about Floyd Mayweather. We've talked about Gervonta Davis. We've talked about even guys like Ali and Marty Lewis. And these guys are, technically very good. But if there are any MMA fighters that can sort of compete with boxers in the world of technicality and science, it's a guy like Yan. So, unbelievable performance, 50-45, especially when Yan doesn't have a good track record with going to the judges' decisions. I just love to see it, man. I'm so happy for him. Figueiredo, I was a little bit worried that he was going to retire. I'm happy that he's not going to retire because, man, that was a great showcase. Even though he was getting damaged a lot, he was doing his best in the 4th and 5th when it seemed like he was really starting to slow down. And there were some, demoralizing moments with Yan stuffing a couple of takedowns easily in the 3rd after beating him up real bad. He goes out there, he drops Yan at the end of the 4th, gets momentum back. 5th round, they're basically going tit for tat. Yan just outstrikes him by maybe 5 or 6 strikes. But yeah, man, this was an amazing performance. Figgy looked good, but Yan, one of the best performances I've ever seen from him. Unbelievable stuff. Takedown defense looked good. And we saw that he worked on that back take defense in the 1st round where Deiveson Figueiredo took his back and Yan got out of that pretty quickly, and turned the tables on him. So amazing performance. Yan is 2-0 right now this year, adding 2 amazing names to his resume. Let's talk about his resume and then we'll talk about what's next for him. So he's beaten Corey Sandhagen. I don't care what anyone says. He beat Aljo the first time. I understand there was a disqualification, but I'm going to fucking count that, man. It's not like it happened in the 1st round. He basically beat Aljo up for 4.5 rounds and then landed an illegal knee. All right. So I'm going to count Aljo as someone that he's got on his resume. He's got Sandhagen. He's got Aldo. He's got the 2 O's. He's got Aljo and Aldo. Amazing wins. Aljo's one of the greatest bantamweights ever. Aldo's one of the GOATs, top 10 all time. Right? Sandhagen is a pretty amazing win to have as well. He's got Jimmy Rivera. He's got John Dodson. Those are pretty okay wins. Those are pretty decent. And he's got Song Yadong. And he's got Deiveson Figueiredo. So, Petr Yan's resume is unbelievable. Okay? Right now at bantamweight, such high quality wins, former champions all over the place. Aljo, Figgy, right? Aldo, great contenders. Song Yadong arguably beat Sean O'Malley. Most of us had him winning, and I know that after the fact, it's easy to say, oh, O'Malley's got him, O'Malley. But remember, on the day of, most of us, 90% of us, had Yan winning that fight when the fight ended. Immediately after, Yan won. Yan won. As soon as you get the judges' reactions, or the judges' decisions, rather, you're saying this is bullshit. All right? So just because we're a couple of years past that moment doesn't mean that I'm just going to forget that Yan probably won that fight. You got to talk about him as one of the bantamweight GOATs. Again, we talk about title wins not necessarily mattering, and some people say, well, it's important to win when the lights are shining the brightest, but like, this is a main event, number one contender fight. You know, like the lights were shining pretty bright tonight. The lights were shining pretty bright when Yan was on a 3-fight loss streak and his back was against the wall. And I think that some of these wins are just as impressive as, you know, write them off title fights. Right? I think that this is just as impressive as a Pantoja win over Asakura, one that he's about to get, if not more. It is more impressive than an Asakura win. So, you know, you're beating former champion in Deiveson Figueiredo. You're beating Song Yadong. You're beating Sandhagen. You've beat Aldo. You've beat Aljo. You've arguably beat O'Malley. Top 5 bantamweight, 100%. There's no debate. Okay? People talk about TJ Dillashaw. I was about to say Cody Garbrandt. If you're still... There's got to be some old head MMA fans. When I say old heads, I don't mean like, 50-year-old MMA fans that were watching back in the 90s, but I mean like, people that just can't get out of the 2010s, the 2010s. You're one of these guys that can't get out of 2014, okay? Cody Garbrandt, you better not have him in your top 5. Either way, I don't think anyone on this planet does. But either way, okay, TJ Dillashaw, Yan passed him. I'm sorry. Aljamain Sterling, Yan is just past that. He's eclipsed that. I'm sorry, man. Beating Figueiredo is better than beating Henry Cejudo off of a multiple year-long layoff. Figgy's on a 3-fight win streak. Won that flyweight belt more than Cejudo. Come on. What are we doing? All right? Who else we got? Aljo's up there. I think it's Merab and Yan. And I talk about Merab having a really good resume. It just aged better. His win over Yan just got even better. So I think Petr Yan, what I'm ultimately saying is he's a top 3 bantamweight of all time. Arguably number 2. Okay? And if he wins that belt again, he's the bantamweight GOAT. Straight up. But will he? Because he called out the champion. Merab was saying that, I want to fight Figueiredo because Umar hasn't deserved it, or he hasn't earned it. And actually, I think there's a good argument for that. Umar went from fighting unranked nobodies to Corey Sandhagen. And don't get me wrong, Sandhagen is a good win. It's a great win. It's a number 1 contender-worthy win. But I don't know, man. Getting a title shot, I feel like they're giving him out a little bit too easily, right? And I know that, there's some unranked guys that are better than ranked guys, but Umar's not fought any of the unranked guys that are better than the ranked guys. So does Umar deserve a title shot? I guess. I'd rather see it over the Yan fight next, just because I want Yan to fight the winner, and I guess we'll get into that right now. I want Umar and Merab to happen first, because if Yan fights Merab next, it's like he's going in there with a guy that 50-45'd him, and I do think he's going to do a lot better in the rematch, but just the hype, I think the hype will be better if Merab goes out there and beats Umar next. Or if Umar goes out there and beats Merab, we have a fresh matchup, Umar versus Yan. But I'm going to be honest, I did pick Yan to win this fight. I don't think I'm going to pick Yan to beat Merab, and I don't think I'm going to pick Yan to beat Umar. As crazy as that sounds, I think Umar Nurmagomedov is a more dominant grappler, just because in the bantamweight division at least, he's just bigger than Figueiredo. Figueiredo's got the lighter man skill. I don't think Umar's going to finish Yan, but he's big for the bantamweight division. I could see him when he gets Yan down, just having a better ability to keep him there and control him with his weight. And then on the feet, he's taller than Figueiredo. He's got a long reach as well. Maybe not as much power, but it's just one of those matchups where Umar is so well-rounded. He's got high output. He's very fast. He's big. It's just one of those where, Yan might be technically better on the feet, but Umar can mix it up so well. And the MMA gods, we talk about the MMA gods, these up-and-comers, they always beat the old vet that's proven themselves. I've talked about this a million times. The Islam is always going to beat the Charles Oliveira when they fight. The Topuria is always going to beat the Max Holloway and the Volk when they fight. I don't think the MMA gods are kind enough to give us a Yan win there, right? And it's not just me saying it's based on vibes. I'm just saying it's kind of based on history. You know, I listen, Yan looked amazing tonight. I think he can win the belt back. I'm going to tell you this. I'll tell you this. If O'Malley was still champ, I'd pick Yan in the rematch against O'Malley. I would still pick Yan in the rematch. Could O'Malley knock him out? For sure. But if he doesn't, I think O'Malley's winning maybe 2 rounds like last time. But I think Yan has a 5-rounder. I think he beats up O'Malley badly in the 4th and 5th. And, you know, we talk about Yan being injury prone. He looked great in this fight. I don't think he got injured. So his durability is still there. And just because he got dropped doesn't mean I'm going to start saying his chin is kind of fading. Like, it's Figueiredo who dropped Marlon Vera. So Figueiredo kind of does that to everybody. But I want Yan to fight for the belt. He's definitely earned it. He should wait out for a title fight. And I think he'll either get it next, which I think is a bit of a mistake because I want to see Merab fight one more time to get a little bit more hype as a champion. And if Merab loses to Umar, we have a brand new matchup. Russia versus Russia. You know, Yan from Siberia versus Dagestan. That would be a pretty interesting matchup. There'd definitely be some heat on that. So, you know, I just can't wait for Yan to fight for the belt again. And if he wins that, he is the bantamweight GOAT. And he's going to be a top 10 fighter of all time if he wins that. But as I said, Merab 50-45'd him. I know Yan is going to do better in the rematch. But Yan doesn't have the craziest finishing ability. He doesn't have the craziest finishing power. And against a guy with Merab's cardio, it's going to be hard to put him away even after hurting him because he's going to recover really well because of the gas tank. And against Umar, big, well-rounded. He's just a nightmare matchup for Yan insofar as he's just going to frustrate him, right? He's not going to allow Yan to have that many moments on the feet like he had with Figueiredo tonight. So I unfortunately don't think we're going to see Yan win his next fight. But he's 2-0 this year. He's continuing to add on to his resume. I hope that they do the Merab and Umar fight next. I really do, because I want to see Merab get one more win. Because if he gets that one more win, then, you know, he's arguably just a top 10 fighter all time if he beats Umar, right? Because that's a really tough matchup. I know Umar doesn't have a crazy resume, but you just look at the way he fights, man. He's a killer. And he's just unbelievably well-rounded. But let's get on to the next one. Amazing fight. It lived up to the expectations. I'm happy for Yan. Even though Figueiredo lost, he has no reason to hang his head low. That was an amazing performance. And he just gave us one of the greatest bantamweight fights of all time. So credit to Figueiredo. You know, like I've seen Yan in a lot of striking battles. O'Malley did a little bit better than Figueiredo, but I think Figueiredo is the second best striker, or maybe the third. I mean, I guess Song performed really well on top of that, but he did better than Sandhagen. That's for sure. Figueiredo did better than Sandhagen. What's next for Figueiredo, by the way? Maybe Sandhagen. I'd like to see that fight. Davidson Figueiredo and Nurmagomedov would be a great matchup. You know, that'd be an amazing one. And I think he could potentially win that fight. Maybe the first person to ever drop Sandhagen. Oh, wait, Yan dropped Sandhagen. Never mind. But that's actually the fight that I want to see. So, yeah, let's get on to the next one. The main event made this look so pathetic. You know, and this was pathetic when it was happening. Tabat Richie versus Yan Xiaonan. You know, decent performance from Yan Xiaonan, but Tabat Richie landed 17 strikes. And this is the thing that just pisses me off so much about some of these WMMA fights. You know, and of course we saw Yan and Figueiredo just totally eclipse this, right? I mean, this was a horrible fight. It got made to look 100 times worse when the main event happened, but you know, Tabat Richie's out there fainting, like Volkanovski, right? Just faints like Adesanya, faint. You know, she's fainting a million times and doing absolutely fuck all. Doing absolutely nothing. Does that not make your blood boil? When you see someone fainting a million times, you know, as if they're doing some high-level stuff. Whoa. Joe Rogan would probably be glazing her. 100% Rogan would say, and just look at how high-level and measured she is. It's beyond words how much that pissed me off, okay? Fainting a million times, doing fuck all with it. I'm happy that Yan Xiaonan won this fight. You know, and I understand it. They're trying to push Tabat Richie, right? Because she has a big following on social media. But my goodness, was that just a horrible, atrocious performance. And Yan Xiaonan was the only one that did anything, you know? And it's like, she had a good performance. I think everyone kind of expected her to win this fight. She gave Zhang Weili some tough moments, so good win for her. But, you know, she was basically fighting like a heavy bag that just fainted a million times, that tried to trick us into thinking that that's high level. Anyway, Song Kanon versus Muslim Salikov, insane KO. Crazy KO, Muslim Salikov. Head kick KOs Song Kanan with a spinning wheel kick. Classic Muslim Salikov KO. I think he's got a couple of these spinning heel kick KOs in the UFC, but 42 years old, I believe, or 43. The king of Kung Fu. Muslim Salikov, if you guys don't know, he's actually a former training partner of mine. And, I've talked about him before. He's one of these guys, he's, kind of one of these guys kind of hunched over in training and he kind of, minds his own business and you get a hold of this guy because sometimes you're grappling with him and he's built out of stone, man. Muslim Salikov's built out of stone and he's an old vet. He's one of these, he's a little bit confused at times. And to see him go out there and it's like clockwork. I mean, Muslim Salikov, he could forget that he's even fighting, right? Because he's an old guy. It's like clockwork. Just Song Kanan moves in front of him and Muslim Salikov, and just spinning back kick on command. That's just how built in it is into his system. And I'm messing with Muslim Salikov a little bit. We kind of mess around with him sometimes, but either way, amazing performance from Muslim Salikov. And, he's a beast. He's a beast. He's caught everyone with that in training. And he's catching people with it in fights. Song Kanan, a bit of an old guy, too. He fought Adesanya back in the day. Fought Ian Gary, dropped Ian Gary. Gary KO'd him later in that fight, but amazing performance. Muslim Salikov, to be able to still knock guys out with Edson Barboza-esque highlight reel type of knockouts at that age is pretty insane. So amazing performance. Wang Kong versus Gabriel Fernandez. Wang Kong, the Joker, got fraud checked. She has a very fun style, but she got submitted. Crazy submission. Volkan Ozdemir, Carlos Ulberg. There were people that thought Volkan Ozdemir won this fight. I cannot believe that people thought Volkan Ozdemir won this fight. Carlos Ulberg won every single round, in my opinion. Maybe Volkan Ozdemir won the first. But this is the thing. If you say Volkan Ozdemir won this fight, you just wanted Carlos Ulberg to be fraud checked. You preferred Volkan because he's the crafty vet and he's been around for a long time. And hardcore fans root for the old school vets, right? Hardcore fans root for the guys that are not the up-and-coming prospects. And Volkan Ozdemir has a couple of moments. Volkan Ozdemir has a couple of big moments. And no, he won the round. He had a couple of moments, man. He won the round. He did better than we expected. That's literally what it is with people that think he won this fight. There's no fucking way he won this fight. Carlos Ulberg pieced him up in the second and third round. And Volkan Ozdemir was doing his thing. He was landing the big, ugly low kicks. Jan Blachowicz style. Not calf kicks, but he was landing them on the thigh of Carlos Ulberg, just thudding kicks. He was landing some decent right hands, but, Carlos Ulberg, for every single Volkan Ozdemir punch or kick, Carlos Ulberg would land 4 or 5 strikes, right? Carlos Ulberg would land a 3-piece running combination, 2 to the body, 1 up top. He was in between all of Volkan Ozdemir's punches, landing 3 or 4 jabs, right? First round, I gave him the first round too. He was catching Volkan Ozdemir on the back foot with hooks and combinations. This was an amazing fight, by the way. Really good fight. Volkan Ozdemir did his thing. He held his ground. But the way I see it is Volkan had a Figueiredo-esque performance with Carlos Ulberg, right? Meaning he was in there. He was holding his ground. He was competitive. He wasn't totally out of it, right? But it was the third and second round of the Yan Figueiredo fight the whole time, which were Jan's most dominant rounds, where Yan was clearly ahead of Figueiredo. Figueiredo would land some big shots. That's kind of what it was. Carlos Ulberg was clearly ahead. I mean, in the third round, or maybe it was the second, Volkan Ozdemir started getting frustrated, and Bisping even mentioned that on the commentary. He was he's getting frustrated, he's starting to overswing, and that's because Carlos Ulberg was whooping him up. So, amazing performance from Carlos Ulberg. I'm kind of impressed by how Volkan Ozdemir didn't get knocked out in this fight. Volkan Ozdemir's been KO'd a few times. He got knocked out brutally against Yuri Prohaska. Also, Carlos Ulberg, pretty tough. He got knocked out back in the day against, what's his name? Kennedy Nzechukwu. He was pretty tough. He took a lot of the big punches from Ozdemir. But yeah, this is a pretty rare war for light heavyweight. It was a great scrap at light heavyweight. 2 heavy hitters. None of these guys got dropped. But Ulberg just continues to impress me. High-level stuff. High-level striker. Can he compete with the likes of Alex Pereira? I mean, listen, I don't think so. Alex Pereira just seems like a much more powerful Ulberg. But I will say this about Olberg. He does have some great combinations. Like, we rarely see guys at light heavyweight throwing three pieces with a couple of shots to the body in those three-piece combinations. Like, he has some of the best combos. He has some of the slickest technique. He's very high output, and, his defense is pretty good as well. But, yeah, Olberg with a great win. Let's get him a high-level opponent. Let's try to remake that Jamal Hill fight. That would be amazing. Jamal Hill versus Carlos Olberg would be sick. Or maybe Yuri Prohaska versus Olberg. And for Volkan Ozdemir, I don't know. I mean, maybe we can do the Anthony Smith doppelganger rematch, right? Or maybe the Anthony Smith rematch. Maybe we could do that. I don't know what's next for him, though. But, yeah, good fight. Volkan did pretty well, but, man, he did not win that fight. He really did not win that fight. Olberg pieced him up. Zhang Ming Yang. What is this, the 18th first-round KO for Zhang Ming Yang? Really good fight. His power is ridiculous. Zhang Ming Yang, I'm telling you, this guy is going to be ranked someday. He has insane power. 18 first-round finishes. I'm a little bit worried for him because he doesn't have the longest reach in this division, and I feel like he's very dependent on one of those KOs. And once you get to the top of this division, you've got guys like Yuri, you've got guys like Pereira, you've got a lot of guys with insane KO power. But, if Zhang Ming Yang tags you with a right hand, you're going out. So, good performance from him, knocking out Ozzy Diaz, who was doing all right, giving him some frustrating moments. But, the first right hand Zhang landed, or what am I saying, right hand? It was an elbow. Right hand. It was an elbow, nasty elbow, catching Ozzy Diaz on the way in. Still showcasing a lot of power. Either way, first big moment Zhang Ming Yang had. He basically sent Diaz flying. So I can't wait to see this guy work his way up to light heavyweight. Maybe do him versus Volkan Ozdemir. That'd actually be a sick fight. Zhang Ming Yang versus Volkan Ozdemir would actually be a banger. So maybe make that fight. Yeah, that's it for this card. Really excellent card. Yan is back in the win column, 2-0 with 2 top 10 wins this year. I say he's the second greatest bantamweight to ever do it, and I really hope he wins the title again. Unfortunately, I wouldn't pick him to beat Umar or Merab next. Unless we see Merab and Umar fight next, and there's some weaknesses that they show that we haven't really seen before, and I think that Yan might be able to exploit those, then that'd be a different thing. But yeah, great fight. I think he'll get the next title shot after that. The reason why, again, I want to see that fight before Yan gets it next is because I just want another Merab fight before he fights Yan again. I want there to be a chance that someone else is holding that belt when Yan fights for the title. Is there that much hype behind a Yan and Merab fight? To be honest, I'm not going to lie. I would not be that hyped for it because I saw the first one, and I think that Yan could potentially win the rematch, but it's not like the first one was that exciting. It was impressive, very impressive from Merab, but it wasn't that exciting, and I would dread it. I'd be like, oh, shit. Even if he doesn't get 50-45, he's probably going to get 48-47. If Merab wins against Umar, then all right, it's the only title fight to make. We may as well see it. But if Umar wins, then I'm hyped. It's a brand new matchup, right? And it'd be really interesting seeing those guys fight each other. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Until next time.